1930, Professors Robert Blake and Kirsopp Lake organized and led the Harvard expedition to Egypt. Their main purpose was to follow up on work done during an earlier 1927 expedition and to retrieve or photograph inscriptions found in 1904 by Egyptologist Sir William Flinders Petrie. The inscriptions were located at Serabit el Khadim, a remote site in the Sinai Desert. The expedition archives, including reports, glass negatives, and artifacts, remain at the Semitic Museum. Kirsopp Lake was an English biblical scholar. He became a professor of early Christian literature at Harvard in 1914. He was very interested in archaeology and went on several expeditions. Robert Blake was an American Byzantinist who studied Armenian and Georgian cultures. He came to teach history at Harvard in 1920 and was promoted to full professor in 1930. Sir Alan Gardner was a self-taught Egyptologist who wrote extensively on Egyptian hieroglyphs and grammar. He did not go on the expedition, but was instrumental in translating the inscriptions brought back by Blake and Lake. Lake was originally persuaded to visit Serabit by Gardner between cocktails at a Cairo dinner party in 1927. Gardner reported that the site was only 10 miles away from a valley through which they could easily pass. In reality, the expedition was a bit more complicated. The group traveled by car, boat, train, and finally camel to reach Serabit. They were quarantined for a few days at Suez before being allowed to continue their journey. They traveled for 11 days down dangerous cliffs and across miles of desert during the hottest recorded spring in the area. In the desert, they traveled over extremely rough terrain, riding over 1,000-foot cliffs in over 100-degree heat on camels. They camped either in old abandoned mines or in tents. Oftentimes, water was a full day's camel ride from their camp.
We did not realize that it would mean riding camels for 11 days and working in a stone quarry for 5 hours at a temperature of 115 degrees in the shade. But we have a strong impression that Mr. Gardner knew better than we did, and we shall be glad to take him with us the next time we go.
Serabit is a sandstone plateau in the southwest of the Sinai Peninsula. It was one of 2 major turquoise mines used in the ancient Near East. In the beginning of the Middle Kingdom, a temple was erected at the site dedicated to Hathor, the Lady of Turquoise. Most of the inscriptions and other artifacts were found in and around the temple. Many of the inscriptions were, and continue to be, damaged by erosion and vandals.
The photographers discovered some strange writing, which seemed to them neither Egyptian, Nabatean, nor Sinaitic. Was it Hittite? General interest ran high, until Father Boutin, looking at it from a different angle, pointed out that it read, Boston, USA, May 7th, 1893.
Gardner concluded from the photos and the inscriptions that, while much of the writing was done in Egyptian hieroglyphs, there were also some inscriptions written in a different script. This new script, which became known as Proto-Sinaitic, was the developmental step between Egyptian and Phoenician, which then led to Hebrew and Greek. The inscriptions were likely carved by Canaanite foreigners working in the mines. They could not read the Egyptian hieroglyphs, but used a small number of them to represent different consonants in a new alphabet. The age of the Proto-Sinaitic inscriptions is unclear. Some scholars believe they were carved in the Middle Kingdom, while others date them to the New Kingdom. Modern English is written in a script ultimately derived from this ancient Semitic writing system. These Proto-Sinaitic signs eventually developed into Roman letters, for example, A and H. While most of the inscribed stone fragments collected by Blake and Lake were delivered to the Cairo Museum, it generously provided the Semitic Museum with many plaster copies. The dark, confined space in the caves, coupled with a faint engraving, often made the discovery of the graffiti difficult. A strong, raking light can be very helpful in assisting to reveal the graffiti. Little Saeed was the youngest member of the expedition group. He was also the most skilled at finding new inscriptions, according to Blake's praise and later correspondence. This unique statue fragment of a bearded male head was found by Little Said. It may represent one of the foreign Canaanite miners who were creating the graffiti. Bearded Canaanites were also famously depicted in the Middle Kingdom period Khnum-Hotep tomb paintings at Beni Haas in Egypt. In 1935, Harvard organized another expedition to Serabit to excavate the Temple of Hathor. This was led by R.F.S. Starr, who had previously directed the Semitic Museum's joint expedition to Nuzi in Iraq. Starr discussed his memories of the 1935 expedition in a 1989 amateur video.
Well, Kirsopp Lake was organizing this expedition, and he needed a field director. And I was at loose ends at the time, so he persuaded me to go out. Didn't take too much persuasion, but I went out with them. I went out to Cairo and got the gear together and got it off to Suez. And shortly after we got to Serabit, Kirsopp got desperately ill. He had to leave, so he and Silva left. And so I carried on. And we completed the dig. Just the three of us, Mueller and Chardin and myself. And we lived in one of the mines. I still have the scars on the top of my head. It's only about this much clearance. But it was very interesting. So we had about 25 or 30 workmen, local bedmen. But it was very primitive. Our closest source of water was a day's camel journey away. And so we didn't have any baths. But it was interesting. It was very interesting. I enjoyed it.
Many of the objects from Starr's expedition to Serabit remain at the Semitic Museum, such as these decorated pottery sherds and stele fragments, and also this sandstone lion head. The discovery of Proto-Sinaitic inscriptions at Serabit el Khadim was an important step in tracing the development of the alphabet.
We have just finished 11 days of camel riding and tramping through the desert. I am now sitting in a roomy guest bungalow 15 yards from the shore of the Red Sea, and am endeavoring to find some carmine strand in the tangled skein of events which have encompassed us during the last week and a half. The importance of the work done at Serabit is obvious, and we were gratified to find that all the scholars whom we met were very complimentary. The whole material will be published shortly, but it may be said in general that its chief importance is the light it throws on the history of writing in the Semitic world.